I'm going to open with what might seem some bold statements. We like to be disgusted, and some of us are showing signs of addiction to this emotion. Notice the reflexive response to those statements. Perhaps dismissiveness. Ridiculous, not me. Perhaps even disgust itself was the response to what was just intimated. See if it's possible to look beyond the thoughts that arose, whatever they were, and pay attention to whether the experience was stimulating or relaxing. I would suggest the former is more likely. Stimulation is inherently sought, even if the input is not positive, and this is why people are attracted to scary movies and slasher films, for example. So, what is disgust, and why is it important in our present state of social cohesion precariousness? Disgust is described as a condition of distaste or loathing, and that's quite the spectrum, as distaste invites a sense of relative subtleness, whereas loathing is an extreme end emotion. The root of the word is attributed to dis and gusto. Dis is a negative prefix originating from apart, and gusto is appealing to the taste. So essentially, disgust is not tasty. This points to the likely origin of this emotion as a means for ensuring avoidance of poisonous substances and disease, which would have been extremely advantageous. In this capacity, disgust is critical for our survival, but disgust didn't stop evolving and became co-opted by our strong social evolution. We are absolutely a social creature, and our ability to cooperate and support each other is the key factor in the success of the human species, and disgust found a key supporting role. Disgust became a powerful tool in establishing social cohesion, supporting the creation of moral frameworks and social rules to hold an ever-increasing number of humans together. This is where the inversion of disgust comes into play: purity. If at one end of the spectrum you have something which is poisonous or diseased, then at the other you have that which is pure. This is a root of the Judeo-Christian religion, the purity of God in the original creation of Adam and Eve, corrupted by the serpent and cast out into the world. Man is deemed evermore to be tainted by this original sin and seeks redemption through the return to God. Morality was framed within the context of what is divine, but importantly, the safety net is the knowledge of humility that all of man is flawed and imperfect. With the separation of science and church through the Enlightenment, the need for a sense of moral purity remained, but without the checks and balances of the faith that all of us were inherently fallible. The notion arose and persists today that people can be educated and conditioned into moral correctness. The problem is not this concept per se, but who determines what is moral and what is immoral. Our gut response to this seems obvious. We, of course, know what is right and wrong, but is this really the case? There are clearly some significant differences in terms of what people believe to be the right moral alignment of the world, regardless of whether they are secular or religious. The reason we appear to be so divided at present is that we attach morality to our positions, and morality is moral purity, the opposite end of the disgust spectrum. Therefore, we reason if someone does not agree with our morality model, then they are less pure than us. If they are seen to be directly opposing our moral framework, then we're likely to find ourselves disgusted by their position. Disgust is such a powerful evolutionary driver that we can easily be swept up and forget that we're disgusted by the idea, and instead become disgusted by the person and any group which we attribute them to. The poison we see within the idea is seen to contaminate any who come into contact with it. Disgust is also susceptible to further dangerous emotional hijack because we're likely to fear the consequence of a perceived opposing moral framework. Fear, when combined with disgust, invites hatred. Sadly, this is what we're seeing play out in our social discourses, and the more we attach a sense of morality to the issue, the more emotional and less rational the conversation becomes. We are seeing a return to the worst excesses of religious fervour in our secular environment, with the pressure of purity tests, such as declaring our pronouns on our social media profiles, and acts of social flagellation, such as public profession of our regret and disgust for our own race, gender, or country for perceived past wrongdoings, being used to demarcate the lines between in-group and out-group. All of this stems from attribution of purity and disgust, morality, to ideas. Bringing us back to the start, if we pay attention to what we find ourselves watching across the media landscape, we will find we obtain stimulation from our sense of disgust, and that stimulation is distorted into a sense of our own moral purity. They think badly, whereas I am more morally pure and enlightened in my reasoning. This means the things that disgust us draw us to seek more to continue to affirm our own moral position, and there is the additional attraction of feeling part of a community which thinks the same way. This is a very heady and dangerous cocktail of social emotion which promotes division and the demonizing of people rather than encouraging healthy discussion of ideas. The key to freeing ourselves from this social contagion is to recognize the moralizing tendency and to acknowledge the powerful appeal of the emotion of disgust in the social context. Whether we're religious or not, it is crucial that we find humility in our own inherent weaknesses and flaws, instead of seeking a misguided sense of purity in our battle with the other. If we can do this, then we might find we can have a constructive conversation once again. Thanks for listening.